Welcome back, family, friends, and fans. It's Karma Lately. Thank you for joining me. I want to give a special shout out to Sally Peters for requesting this video. Sally saw a video that I made in Spanish and she was following along, but she wanted me to make it in English, and it's the video that I am doing that you're watching today. And so what we're going to be talking about are special stitches, their importance, how to adjust your stitches on a computerized sewing machine, how to select and adjust them. Also a quick little trick if you have a large thread cone like this one. So we're going to get right into it. We're going to start by talking about stitches. So there's a couple of things that I like to do before I get started on my machine. She needs a little dusting today, but I'm not gonna do that right now. One of the things I like to do is make sure that everything I have is here. I have my bobbin threaded, I have my needle threaded, and I don't see any significant issues at all. I recommend that you learn as much as you can about your machine. I'm still studying my manual. I want to learn everything eventually. I'm hoping that within the next year or so, I could have covered everything that's in the manual. And so I always keep it handy. And that's why she's already so beat up, because I want to learn as much as I can. So I'm always opening it up, cleaning it inside, dusting it, and making sure, because this is the money maker, or in someone else's case, the craft maker or hobby maker, and you want to make sure that she's always in good condition. So that's the first thing. Next thing, we're going to turn it on. Mine has a switch on the right hand at the bottom. So I've turned it on, and there's always things to think about when you're going to work on your machine, because are you going to be working with a straight stitch? Are you going to be working with a zigzag stitch? And so that's one of the main things that I want to go over today, is the basic stitches and what they're great for. We're gonna start with the first stitch, well, the first two stitches, 0 and 01. Those are straight stitches. One thing you'll notice is that when you're on a 0 or 01 stitch, you'll notice that your machine is going to move. See, if I move this to 2, the needle moved to the right. If I move it back to 1, the needle moves every time. So we're on 0 and 01. Those are straight stitches. It's a left needle position, and it's used to gather with the gathering foot or for top stitching. Then we're going to move to number 2. That's another straight stitch, but for that one, the needle is going to move to the center, actually. So it's a straight stitch with the center needle position, and you can use the edge stitch foot for edge stitching on woven fabrics. And I'm going to cover a couple more that I didn't cover in the other one. I'm going to try to cover all the ones that I covered in the Spanish video as well. The number 3 stitch, this is the stitch that I used. It's the triple straight stitch, or the straight triple stitch. That one I used when I was creating dolls. It was very, very accommodating because, or I should say forgiving, because it provides a very strong stitch. It's actually called the triple stretch stitch, and it's great for attaching sleeves, sewing inseams, sewing stretch fabrics, and decorative stitching. And I used it because I wanted my dolls to have durability. That's why I was using the triple stretch stitch. I always have trouble saying that for some reason. Number 4 is called the super stretch, and it's perfect for fabrics that are very elastic, as are all of the zigzags, but the number 4 is the super stitch because it has a very tight zigzag. Now number 5 is called that's the official zigzag stitch, and it's called and it's for overcasting and attaching appliques. I mean, you can also, obviously, with the zigzags and with all of these, even the straight stitch, you can create designs. With the number 6, as you can see that it's dotted, the number 6 is dotted. That's called the 3-point zigzag stitch. And so with this one, you can use for overcasting on medium weight or stretch fabrics, attaching elastic, darning, etc. And it's really important to know these things, because when you're buying products, when you're buying merchandise, purses, bags, shirts, dresses, dolls, the seamstress is taking into account all the different all the different stitches that they have at their disposal and what they're for, and that's the reason why you're getting quality. So it's really important to know that, because then you want to use that when you're making your specific projects. So the number 7 is for overcasting on thin or medium weight fabrics, and then number 8 is for overcasting on thick fabrics. And number 9 is actually for overcasting on thick fabrics and decorative stitching. You can use it as a different decoration with the same purpose as number 8. And technically, from 7 to 12, these are all overcasting stitches. And overcasting is also really good for stretch materials. So all of these from 4 to 12 are really great for when you're working with materials that have a very elastic fabric. Okay, number 10 is overcasting on stretch fabrics. So it's just a different design. And number 11, overcasting on thick or stretch fabrics. And then number 12, overcasting on stretch fabrics and decorative stitching. So 4, 5, and 6 are perfect for elastic fabrics. However, from 4 to 12, these are all great for elastic. It's just that 4, 5, and 6 are most ideal because they're the zigzag stitch, which is most ideal for elastic fabrics and elastic itself. For number 13, actually 13 and 14, these are both the blind hem. The blind hem is really used to finish the edge of a project, like the hem of a pair of trousers without the stitch showing. So you would use 13 or 14. 13 is defined in the manual as the blind hem stitching for medium weight fabrics. And number 14 is the blind hem stitching on stretch fabrics. So there you can see this one is blind hem stitching on medium weight fabrics. So I'm assuming cotton and the likes. And then for 14, it's perfect for when you're working on a hem, on a blind hem with a stretch fabric, because as you can see, it has that zigzag. It has a nice tight zigzag right there. just confirming that the zigzag stitch is always great for stretch fabrics. So 37 is for horizontal buttonholes on thin and medium weight fabrics. 38 is for secured buttonholes for fabrics that have backings. 39 is buttonholes for stretch or knit fabrics. 40 is for buttonholes for stretch fabrics. 41 bound buttonholes. 42 keyhole buttonholes for thick or furry fabrics. 43 is the keyhole buttonholes for medium weight and thick fabrics. 44 is keyhole buttonholes for thick or furry fabrics. And then skip to 49, applique quilting, free motion quilting, satin stitching, button sewing. So now we're looking at 49 a little differently. 49 has a lot of capacity. Also wanted to look at number 15, applique stitching. Now we're going to go down to 50. 50 is for attaching appliques and binding. An applique is basically a technique where you grab small pieces of fabric and you attach them to large pieces of fabric with decorative patterns, such as like different design stitches or shapes or letters, and that's an applique. They're both the same, but as you can see, the stitch is just reversed. Then we have 46, and that is piecing straight stitching. It's with a seam allowance of 6.5 millimeters from the right edge of the presser foot for whatever you need, specifically with piecing straight stitch. Number 18, we're skipping around. It's the patchwork stitching and decorative stitching. Then we have 19, that's patchwork stitching, decorative stitching, and sewing overcasting on both pieces of fabrics, such as with tricot. (20) is patchwork stitching and decorative stitching. 48, straight stitch quilting that looks hand sewn. And then we have 52, which is quilting background stitching. Stippling. So this is the quilting stippling stitch. That looks amazing, and this is so much fun because just knowing is half the battle. And then of course there's all these decorative stitches that you can use just to create a lovely design on whatever you're working on. It's good to take a couple of minutes, or if you want to take longer, practicing your stitching, practicing sewing. Just like when you're gonna sing, you vocalize. When you're working on a project and you're drawing or painting, you're gonna have some practice runs. When you're learning an instrument, you're gonna be practicing a lot before you are gonna do the big piece. So I find myself doing a lot of practicing. And one of the things that I learned is you can use paper. If you have extra paper, you can use paper to practice, and you can keep it to see how you're doing as time goes on, how your stitches are coming out and everything like that. So we're gonna use this piece of paper. That way you're not wasting fabric. So we're going to use this piece of paper, and we're going to just try out the different stitches. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I select my stitches. The first thing I do is, of course, decide what stitch I'm going to do. In this case, I'm going to go kind of in order. So we're going to start with this basic first straight stitch. And here you can make it longer. You can create a stitch that's longer. Choose number 5 whenever working with fabric. Whenever working with paper. Always choose the longest stitch length for each one that you're doing. In this case, we're working with fabric, so we're definitely going to put number 5. Had this been, I keep saying it, in this case, we're working with paper, so we're going to put number 5. The width, although it doesn't matter greatly, I do want to increase the width just a little bit. What happens with paper is that if you have very tight stitches, then it's going to literally rip right through. I have experience stitching books with bookbinding with the sewing machine, and I'm going to be doing more videos with that as well. But that's one of the things that I learned, is that the stitches have to be long in order for you not to rip through the paper. So you're always going to look to see which one you want. Make sure you have the right number selected here, and increase the length and the width here. These buttons here are just going to change the stitch selection that you have here. Also, you always want to make sure you're in the right operation. My machine, when I turn it on and off, I'll show you right here, automatically goes to the stitching operation, the sewing stitches. So you can always change it here depending on if you're going to do letters, which you can find in this machine, you can find up here. But in this case, we're just going to do a straight stitch. We're going to leave it at 0. As a matter of fact, let's change it to 1 so that you can see the change. And then we're going to put this up, put that back up, and take that there. I'm using my presser foot so that I can always have my hands free. And I'm doing this on an angle, so the stitch might be a little bit, I don't want to pull the thread so much, so I'm just gonna cut it over here and cut it over here. And there you have a bona fide straight stitch. Now we're gonna move on to, I don't want to do the reinforced one because I feel like it's a little too aggressive for this paper. Let's do, now I'm only going to the longest stitch because I'm working with paper. We're gonna do the zigzag stitch, and we're gonna widen her a little bit because it's pretty narrow. I've got my presser foot down, and now I'm going to use my foot pedal to sew. You don't want to cut it too short because then you have to re-thread the needle, and I really don't want to. Looks like I might have to. I'm spending more time trying not to. Okay. There's number 4. So it's a great stitch. I widened it a little bit, but when you're working with your fabric, you don't have to. Then we're going to do number 8. Technically, I'm supposed to have the G foot, but I am trying to be lazy right now. If I find it in one shot, I'll use it. If I don't, better luck next time. Darn it, I found it in one shot. Oh God. So I just lifted my presser foot. I have a little button back here. It drops the presser foot, and I just align it and drop it, and it attaches. So this is for G. We're gonna make it as big as possible. It's already very wide, so let's try it. And you want to make sure that you are changing your presser foot, because if not, the stitches are not going to come out as good. So we're going to try number 9 as well, since we already have the G inside. Oops, but I should have made this a little bit bigger. And that's going to be really great with fabric. Let's see, another one with G. Let's see, what else can we find with the G? I guess we found the only 2 that have a G. Okay, so I guess that means we're going to take out this presser foot. We're going to put this one back. Another thing that I wanted to let you guys know is I have this little tin can. Actually, this is for my daughter. This is my daughter made this for her class in the summer. She's going to be growing something on here. But I'm using it for now until I make my my own little tin can recipient here. So I'm using this thread now, this cone. My machine does not have anywhere for me to put this cone. It won't take it, it's too big. So what I've done is I'm utilizing a different bobbin, and I have inserted the thread through this bobbin out this way, and then I have threaded my machine. I keep this tin can at the bottom, right behind the machine, all the way in the back, right underneath the bobbin, so that there's a nice straight line. And that's what I use to sew. That's how I use my machine with the pine cone, even though it doesn't have a space for the pine cone, for the cone thread. So I just wanted to say thank you guys for watching. I hope this video was helpful. I'm going to be doing another video showing you guys how to create activities, just sewing activities for yourself so that you can practice easily, and it's going to make for a lot more precision stitching and better, precision stitching and better quality and execution with all your projects. So thank you guys so much for watching. Please visit my new online store. It's open now, karmaspieces.com. It's in the description box. I have a section called sewing supplies, and I have a whole bunch of other things just to create a sustainable and eco-friendly home. So thanks again for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.